How do you convert a pin into a material advantage? Have you ever found yourself in a chess position where a piece is pinned, and you wondered how to turn that situation into a win? Let's break down how to convert a pin into a material advantage. First, let's clarify what a pin is. A pin occurs when one piece cannot move without exposing a more valuable piece behind it to capture. Understanding the type of pin is essential. There are two main types of pins: absolute and relative. An absolute pin occurs when the pinned piece cannot legally move because doing so would expose the king to check. This is the strongest type of pin since the piece is completely immobilized. On the other hand, a relative pin involves a piece that is protecting a valuable piece other than the king. This piece can move, but doing so risks losing something important. Next, identify the pinning piece, the pinned piece, and the piece behind the pinned piece. The pinning piece is usually a bishop, rook, or queen that attacks along a line. The pinned piece is the one that cannot move freely, and the piece behind it is typically more valuable and is your target. To convert the pin into a material advantage, you need to apply pressure on the pinned piece. Increase the number of attackers targeting it. Since the pinned piece cannot move, it becomes vulnerable to capture. Use your pawns or other pieces to attack it, forcing your opponent into a tough situation. When dealing with absolute pins, you can pile up attackers on the pinned piece without worrying about it escaping. This often leads to winning that piece outright. In contrast, with relative pins, you must be cautious. The pinned piece can move, potentially breaking the pin. Apply pressure quickly and calculate whether your opponent can sacrifice to escape and if you will still be ahead after any exchanges. Tactical combinations can also be useful. You might create threats such as forks or discovered attacks using the pin. For instance, if a pawn is pinned and cannot move, you could deliver a check that takes advantage of that pin. Let's consider a practical example. If a pawn is pinned to the king by a bishop, attacking that pawn with multiple pieces can force your opponent to lose material since the pawn cannot move. Another example is pinning a knight that protects a queen. By attacking the knight, you can win the queen if the knight cannot move. In summary, converting a pin into a material advantage involves recognizing the pin, increasing pressure on the pinned piece, and taking advantage of its immobility or restricted movement. Absolute pins are easier to exploit, while relative pins requiring careful calculation and timing. Using pins effectively can weaken your opponent's position and lead to winning material and ultimately the game.